everybody. Welcome into the Dirty Jerzey Podcast. I'm Jordan Spurgeon with Margulis, Kayla O'Sullivan, and Susan Wong. How's everybody doing today so far? Just checking in on everybody.
Pretty good. It's a little cold being that I am in Jersey and the sun's setting, so a little brisk.
Yeah, Kayla, right. Captain of the team, hence the name Dirty Jerzey here.
Yeah.
Now living back in Jersey, that's always good.
Of course.
Yeah.
Phoenix is boring. Favorite place is a ghost town. So yeah, Phoenix is pretty boring. But, yeah.
Okay, well, our topic that we've chosen really for the rest of the semester and however long we keep this up is just talking about the softness in sports. So sports are obviously not the same as back in the day. I know Will's big on basketball. 90s basketball is a lot more hard-nosed than today. And in baseball, you can't slide into home plate or protect home plate the same. In football, you get all these targeting calls. And Susan here sees it in every sport that she goes to, the photographs. So yeah, just kind of kicking things off. Where do we want to go here with the softness in sports? Whoever wants to go for it.
I think basketball is definitely a huge one. Like, as someone who played it in high school, I know you can barely even touch each other anymore.
Absolutely. And a lot of it doesn't really come in real rule changes. The NBA has this thing where they say, we're going to put an emphasis on this for this year. And in the past 2 years, they've put a lot of emphasis on freedom of movement and limiting grabbing calls, limiting holding and pushing calls, and then also in kind of the other direction, limiting any, I'm not exactly sure what they call it, but like flagrant gestures and flagrant figures of speech. And the game just doesn't look the same at all.
Yeah, I know, like growing up playing basketball, it was like always hard because you were taught to like throw elbows when you get inside. And then I got into high school and it's like, oh, you throw an elbow, you're getting thrown out of the game. It's
exactly.
Like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Exactly. And defense too is like that as well. A lot of the people that come up playing basketball are taught to, the defensive slide, keep your body towards the person, put a body on them to prevent them from getting into the lane. And then when you get into the NBA and even college a little bit, you're going to get called almost every time now for a foul if your defender bumps off of you from your chest.
So with basketball, then I see it too. I mean, obviously now we're in a league where three-pointers are the thing and smaller guys like Steph Curry are dominating the league. I've personally kind of liked that brand of basketball. I think basketball has become – I'm not going to say it surpassed the NFL as far as the most enjoyed sport in America, but it does seem like it's right there as far as like just the talent in the league and everything. So I do feel like it hasn't really hurt the league that much, like changing the rules a little bit to allow for higher scoring games and more – media timeouts, some more ad revenues coming in, which means more money for the players. So it's very interesting. But like, as far as the rule changes, do you think it's made the game worse or better? It's just like pure basketball standpoint.
It's also like, I think also made like points, like I guess more cheap because back then the game, like there was way less 3-pointers and stuff like that, and getting like having higher points and stuff per game and stuff, and looking like at that, like you can see like the difference there has been over the past like how many years, because now it's been way more common and stuff, and it's just I don't know.
You had to earn your points, and now it's kind of like if you've got an arm, if you've got a nice shot, just go down and throw it.
Exactly. But it's interesting because even though the rules have changed, 14-second shot clock off the offensive rebound is the main thing for me. These offensive teams like the Nuggets or the Warriors in the past, RIP, were dominating the league in the regular season, but just like it was back in the day, in the playoffs, defense is still king. I don't think any team in the past 10-ish years has won a championship without a first or second total league-wide defensive rating, maybe third as well. So the game really hasn't changed at its core. It's just the rules that teams are allowed to play with have created a different feel to the game.
That's actually like a really good answer. I didn't think of it that way because it's like that in all sports where we say like, oh, the game is changing. Like in baseball, which we'll touch on next, we're saying, oh, it's more so about the home runs. And it is in a microscope, but if you look at it like as a whole picture, it really hasn't changed that much. Like you still have to have great defense, great pitching, like guys that get on base. You still have to have all that. And same thing in the NBA. We all focus on the threes, but look at the Houston Rockets. Like they lead the league in threes every year, and they get into the playoffs in a 7-game series. And if they have 3 bad games where they can't shoot threes, they're going to get smoked in that series, and that's how it's going to go. So I think it hasn't really changed much, like how soft, quote unquote, the league is now. I think it's been better off for the league, but I see why some fans from different generations would like not like it as much, and certain players like Charles Barkley and Shaq and all them calling other athletes out now saying you couldn't play like when I played, yada yada yada. I think it's actually good for the sport to like have those.
It's also good for the players is the other big thing that people always touch on. It's like the safety of the players is the reason why they're doing this. They're not doing this like, you know, to make the game like worse or anything. It's just it's a lot of it is for safety and stuff, especially in like the NFL and then MLB.
Yeah, and you bring up baseball, and I know that one's like a huge one where the older players are like, okay, you're like milking this injury, like you need to get in the game. You play so many games in a year, though. These guys are kind of really getting worn down. So there's just so much controversy whether it's an old white man's game or if there is a turn, because then you also have guys who get too emotional. But the whole ad was let the kids play last year. And that goes with the bat flips, that goes with the pimping the home runs, charging the mound. And all the old guys are like, no, you hit it, you put your head down, and you run. But all the kids are like, no, like I did something really cool. Like I want to have everyone notice that I did that. That was me.
So I want to get into that here in a minute, but I want to take one step back first. So just to kind of define what we mean by softness in sports. So in the older generation, the boomers and the millennials and that generation, it's like they're seeing a different game and they're having a harder time adjusting. That's why some think, you know, Michael Jordan is better than LeBron, where people our age are tending to say more so LeBron than Michael Jordan.
I mean, you also didn't see them play.
going back with softness, how are we defining softness in sports? I think all 4 of us agree that sports are all in great places right now, but they are softer than they used to be. And so how do we sort of define what softness is in our age group?
I do think what you were saying. So with what you were saying, in high school, it is harder with sports like basketball and that where you can't really touch people anymore. But when you get into the pros, you get those higher scoring games, and then that draws more people in. More people are more drawn to the playoffs. And then in the MLB, they always talk about how the game's so long and no one wants to change it. But now you can do the bat flips, you can charge the mound and like not worry about hurting everyone. And it draws more people in. It's more action. In the NFL, it's a little hard with the softness because you can't really hit guys like they used to. But then again, you can keep your best guys in the game longer because they won't be getting concussions like they used to.
A lot of it is also like, okay, especially in football, a lot of it is protecting the players. Like when I play football, we only had limited of practices where we do hitting and stuff. And you can like, they only let you do so much hitting during practice because a lot of it, you're supposed to save it for the game. A lot of it is just practicing the motions during football. And like a lot of like all the helmet technology and all these different things to help protect the players. I think in some senses, it's a good thing for the sport, but I think it also like they take it to an extreme sometimes, especially when there's like different penalties and they kick them out the game, like for a foul or for a penalty. It's just it's a hard topic for us to like, you know, like really like there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think a lot of it is also just to protect the players. It's a whole controversy because so many people think that it's so easy to get a concussion from football that, you know, like the numbers in high school football have been decreasing, and it's actually like in reality, there's like stats out there. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that like it's just as easy to get a concussion in soccer as it is in football. But people just have like the I guess like the misconception that because football is such a contact sport that it's the one sport that you can get like seriously injured in. But you can get injured in like any sport doing any like you can get injured like falling down the stairs, just walking. You can same injuries. I mean,
and I think something we're probably gonna touch on a lot today is the tendency for players now to sit more with more minor injuries than people did in the past. I mean, Jordan playing through the flu. I know there's a ton of football players that I couldn't name who played through like broken ankles and broken legs. It's just a totally different culture nowadays. I think at least some of that, at least for the NBA, I'm not sure about the other leagues. You guys should touch on that, but the youth culture is so different now with AAU ball and ball beyond just high school. Kids are playing so many more games before they even reach college than they did in the 80s and the 90s. And it wears them down. Wear and tear is a real thing. So it's not only a difference in the players' mindsets, but it's a difference in how much they've played by a certain age.
Yeah,
like
travel
that
ball
point.
has become huge, and that's definitely wearing them down.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into it. So, like we were saying, like softness is a lot of times by the older generation. We're kind of in that crosshair, like part of sports where we're seeing like the transition of like the different ways things are being played, where we're seeing more athletes play games like at a high rate when they were younger, where like someone like Kobe Bryant said he would only play in one tournament a year for like his first like 6 or 7 years, and the rest was all just working on his craft. And so I think that seeing all these rules in place, we're going to see even a change in that period where they're going to play less games when they're younger, because now they're going to be more concerned about the physical toll. And in baseball, you have kids at 18, 19 years old getting Tommy John surgery. I mean, heck, I was 18 years old when I tore my UCL because I played for like 5 straight years with no break. So you see that a lot. And I wasn't even like, going to be a Division I high level prospect. I was going to play like community college baseball and maybe go after there, but we see it all the time. So I think that's sort of the transition we're in, kind of going into baseball. What's some rules that we've seen that are like really maybe hurting the game or helping the game with this like softness?
Well, with the whole transition just in the game itself, they're changing the time of the game, which they're trying to draw more people in, but I just think like if you don't like baseball, you're not going to like baseball. But more towards the injury side, they just changed the IL to, if you're a pitcher, instead of 10 days, you have to be on for 15 days, which you just brought up, you tore your UCL, and people are getting Tommy John surgery a lot younger. Now, I do think sometimes you can go with the day-to-day instead of having to go straight to the IL. But if it really is something like with your elbow, with your shoulder, you should take those 15 days because you're just whipping your arm 100 times, even more than that. And it's within like an hour. And it's a lot on your body. Like I played volleyball and it's kind of the same motion when you serve. I would serve it 15 times and I was like done for the day. These guys are throwing 95, 100, like 80 times in a row. And they do need that time to sit down.
Yeah. It definitely takes a toll on your body. Like when I played flag football too, like throwing, like I played QB and like just every day practicing throwing and stuff, your arm and stuff, I'd still have like elbow pain because of that, because it's just, it really takes a toll on your body. And I think, I don't know, limiting the amount, and I don't know, this goes into like also like load management. There's so many different factors that go into all of this. Like it's crazy like once we get started talking about this, but yeah.
Yeah, and you definitely got, with the travel ball, you have all these different guys who are coming up now. They're like, yeah, no, I've been playing since I was like 8 years old and I played every day, and especially people coming from the Dominican, Puerto Rico, Cuba, all those areas. They have the opportunity to play all year round, and they do that. They play all year round because they kind of see it also as a way to like get into America. Well, I don't know why my neighbors are screaming, but they see it as a way to get into America. And so they utilize the time that they have, but then they get in and they already have the wear and tear that some of these 40-year-olds have when they're 20 years old.
Okay,
Yeah.
So a lot of people call that soft. I didn't mean to cut you off, Will. Is that
you get.
Is that really soft though, to start putting implications in place or rules in place that sort of prevent those sort of things? Like in football, we see it with targeting calls, which I'll touch on later. But in baseball and basketball, we're seeing more so as far as the amount of games you're able to play. Like, is that going to help erase the stigma of like that being soft? Because right now, a lot of people say missing games or sitting out tournaments when you're younger is actually soft of you. But is that something that's going to change like in our minds over the next 5-10 years?
I think definitely as more of the younger guys come in and you start to see like their injuries are a lot more serious and we've been taking them, it will change over to you're not really like that soft, you are actually hurt. Because Aaron Judge last year, he ran into a wall, you could tell he was hurt and he just kept playing. And then he comes in this year and there wasn't an opening day, but he was going to miss it because he actually fractured ribs when he ran into the wall. And they were just like, no, you pulled something. And he was like, okay, yeah. So you never know.
Yeah, we see that. And I know, Will, we were going to get back to you here. What was it that you were trying to add on there? I think you had something to say.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of players today, especially with so much access to games in general, just love the games that they play. Like I know when I was playing basketball now that we're in this quarantine, I played at least once a day, sometimes twice, 2 hours, 3 hours a session. And I hurt my rotator cuff, and I hurt it. and I knew it was hurt. I didn't know exactly what it was, which I'm guessing is a point that a lot of young athletes get to. And I just kept playing for a little bit because I love to play, and it didn't feel that serious. And then went to the doctor, got it checked out, found out what it was, stopped playing once I knew what it was. But, that's a point that a lot of athletes in their teens and in high school are going to get to and maybe not come back from if they don't have the right education for it.
Yeah, I want to touch on that too, because like a lot of times, like when you're young, you want to keep playing. Like, you're hurt, but you want to keep playing. Like, I tore my ACL when I was 14. Like 14. This is like when I was a freshman in high school, and I didn't know that I tore my ACL. I wanted to keep playing. My coach didn't let me play, noticing how swollen my knee was. I didn't realize it was an ACL or anything. I like went home, thought everything was fine. Next day, could not walk, and that's when I realized this is serious. And like even then, I still wanted to come back and play for the rest of, like when I could, like once I recovered. Obviously, didn't recover for 7 months, but like you feel like you really want to play. You really want to get out there. I think that's the other thing. It's like you get like, it's not even that like you get looked down as like being soft and stuff. It's like, I think for a lot of these kids, like their mindset is they want to be out there playing. They want to keep doing this. So it's like these, like having this is, it's a lot of it is like mindset, and a lot of it is, some people say it's mental, but it also like some of these injuries are serious and they could cause like if I sometimes it's like, I also broke my ankle. If I didn't get surgery for that, I could probably have arthritis right now. Like it's like, it's also like the severity of the injuries that could cause like lifelong like impacts to your life, because you're not going to be playing a sport until you're 65. Like you're only your beginning of your career, or like beginning of your life, or how many years you plan on playing that sport. That's it's not your whole life. You have a whole life to live, and you have to think about like how serious these impacts can be to the rest of your life. Because like some people still think that I have a limp, like I still walk funny or whatever because of the injuries that I've had. It's just So.
Yeah, I know my sophomore year, I sprained my ankle in a volleyball game. Luckily, it was at the end of the season, but it was going right into basketball season. So I really rushed the recovery. I went right in. And then 2 years later, senior year, and in volleyball, it's acting up. And I played volleyball Monday through Saturday. And then on Sunday, I had basketball games. And I was like, oh, no, like I'm fine. And then I still went into the basketball season being like, oh, no, I'm fine. And then I had to start college from August to November. I was going to physical therapy 3 times a week because I overstretched everything in my ankle and I formed a bone spur.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. I think all of us here, like playing high school athletics, like we understand that preventative measures being put in place now, like having less contact practice in football, and playing less games in basketball, and maybe sitting out a bit more in baseball or volleyball or basketball, anything. Those aren't really considered soft in our minds because they're going to be beneficial to people long term now that we have the science to back that. But what about some of the rules in games? Like one that keeps that always bugs me. That's why I wanted to do this topic too, is targeting calls in football. So like in college football, we see the Fiesta Bowl last year, Ohio State, Clemson. A player gets ejected for targeting. He's a senior. His team is up, and they end up losing the game. So that ends his college career right there for a call where it was helmet-to-helmet contact on accident. So how soft are some of these rules that we're seeing in specific sports? And feel free to bring up any rule in any sport. Like how is that hurting the games?
I absolutely hate calls like that. And I know hate is a strong word, but a lot of those are like opinion-based calls, because you see it in baseball too. Guys slide in a home and they're like, oh, you like ran into him, you're ejected from the game. No, he just happened to be there. Like they're all opinion-based. So sometimes it can like end a guy's career when it was just, no, I was just playing my sport.
Yeah, you have to take in the views and the angles. Like, it's like the like ejecting them out the game. I think that's just too much. It's just so sad to see these, like, especially if they're like a senior and their careers are getting cut short, and it sucks to see that. Like, especially even now, all these, especially because of the of the pandemic and all these. I don't know. That's a different topic, but like.
Hockey is definitely a sport where like you don't see this kind of softness. Like people don't talk about it. And yeah, sometimes you might argue like, well, they're a little crazy. But also if you have something where they hit a guy too hard, okay, you're in the penalty box for 3 minutes. You're not tossed out of the game. Like you get a chance to like, okay, I can't do that. So now I know like what I can and can't get away with. Like in basketball, you get 5-6 foul calls depending on travel and all that level and all that stuff. but you get a chance to figure out what you're working with. But like in football and baseball, but more so football, you get one chance and you do something and it's like, no, you can't do that. You need to leave.
Right. And in football, talk a little bit more about the targeting call for those who don't know what it is.
So yeah, they define targeting as hitting a defenseless receiver when you could have stopped yourself, basically. So if you hit a receiver that maybe he dropped the pass already, but you still hit him and it ended up being helmet-to-helmet contact, they're going to call targeting, thinking that you're just going after him. Or if you hit a quarterback like 3 seconds after he throws it, they're going to call that targeting.
Sometimes you don't know. You can't see that. Like, your vision is limited in that helmet. You can't – I mean – sometimes you do know, but like sometimes it's also you really don't like know if the play really ended or not. Like you're not sure, and you're still going for the hit and stuff because that's your job.
Yeah, well, like they talk about like limiting injuries, but that actually can cause more injuries because if you're a player and that's in your mind and you're so used to playing one way where it's just go 100%. Now in your mind you're like, I have to stop myself.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're turning your ankle, you're messing up your ACL, like you're doing all these different things, and that hurts the game even more than a hitting call that happens in the moment. That's going to bring in more excitement. It's going to be replayed over and over. It sucks for that guy. He might get a concussion, but it's part of playing in the sport. And I think that okay, this is touchy, but yes, you should be wary of concussions, but it shouldn't be hear all say all, because at the end of the day, a concussion here is not going to be as bad as some other injuries, like a torn ACL from stopping or, shattering your ankle in 3 places. Like there's other things that have to go into consideration, not just what's had documentaries made about it. And that's where I get it, is because you get all these documentaries on concussions and things like that. And that's where it's changed. And that's where I think it's gone a little too far.
It's like the natural movement too. When you're going in to hit someone, you're not gonna like stop, because that like you literally can't. You're using full force to go in on that motion, like stopping and like taking a step back. Like you don't have like your adrenaline is all going to that thing as well. Like there's no like it just makes no sense to like have them like stop and like you're not thinking all that in that sense. Like when you're going to get that hit, you're going to get that hit. Like that's all you're looking for. Like. So are you thinking about? So.
I do understand the whole protecting from concussions thing, because like I've had a concussion before. I'm pretty sure I had 2, but I was only treated for 1. And there was the whole, in the older generation, just play through it. Like when I talked to my dad, he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I had like 5. Okay, well, no, you're not supposed to do that. But I feel like more of the protecting people from concussions should be focused more on how long they sit out, what you do, like while they're out, instead of, oh, well, you can't do this now. Because I'm still convinced everyone is going to get a concussion at some point in their life. It's not something you can like avoid. So instead of changing a whole game and causing more injuries where someone can twist an ankle or something, why don't you focus more on when they're off the field? Make sure they're off the field for a good amount of time. Make sure they're fully ready to come back. Like check in on everything like that.
Also, as a referee, when you're making a targeting call, it seems because it's such a quick decision and a quick window of time that the play actually happens in, you're kind of going to have to judge intention of the person you're calling it on. And that's not really part of sports, especially at the pro level.
Yeah,
very opinionated.
Yeah, very opinionated. It shouldn't be intentions. And sort of touching, like, as our final point here, like you were saying, Kayla, I think this is where, like, right now it's a struggle. I think where it might switch is now as the younger players are coming up and they're being taught to tackle differently. I'm not saying it's going to completely get rid of the problem, but it will change the way, like, we're seeing younger defensive backs already come into the league and they're hitting differently than they used to before. Whereas a guy like Ray Lewis, when he was in the NFL and this was still happening, like this was slowly starting to happen, he couldn't just change the way he was hitting. He was known for knocking people's heads off. But I think now growing up, that's going to help like change those, and hopefully the calls don't become so a part of the game that like really hurts the game in the end.
Yeah, definitely when they're working with like the little like 6 to 8-year-olds, because then the way they hit becomes muscle memory. You can't really mess with the 18, 19-year-olds going into college or in college, because they've already learned one way. It's going to take them a while to learn another way, and even longer, because it's not only something new, but then you have to completely change what you were already doing. Whereas the younger kids, they don't know anything. They're here to like learn. Their bodies are still growing, so they're just muscle memory. What you teach them is what they're going to know.
Exactly. And you can see kind of a generational difference a lot of times in sports with those kind of motions. Like if you've ever watched the 2001 Raptors-Sixers Game 7, Charles Oakley was on the Raptors at that time, and he got called for 2, I don't know if it was defensive or offensive he was in a post-up area, and they were kind of grabbing at each other, throwing some elbows. And this isn't 2001. This is not today. There's been even more evolution to today. But he gets a call for maybe a grab or something, and he looks at the ref like he can't believe his eyes. Like, there's always going to be change like that between different players and different ages. But it's the game just evolves, and
Yeah, you also see that like a lot in baseball, especially because baseball is one of those things where people can play longer now. So you've got guys in the league that are 19 years old. You got guys in the league that are 39 years old. And it's just a huge generational thing because the whole let the kids play. Baseball's softness comes from more of an emotional side. But you'll have younger guys who can be more of a head case because they could have been put on that pedestal when they were kids. And then when they're not making the majors, they're like, oh, well, I don't understand why. Like, I'm just that good. But then you have older guys where it's like you don't talk, you sit there, and you earn your right to speak, you earn your right to be a veteran. Whereas I heard Nolan Arenado say once in a conference, he was saying how when he was younger, you earned your right to talk to the veterans. But now that he's more of a veteran on his team, when the younger guys come up, he goes right to them and he's like, hey, like, I know I'm this big name in the game, but if you need help, you come to me. Like, I will help you out with your hitting or anything.
That's sort of like flushed everything out. Well, we got to wrap this podcast up, but any final thoughts here from any of us?
I hate opinionated calls.
I mean, also, like, some of these reffing calls change the game. Like, it's some of these decisions really, I don't know. Like, if you look back, I don't have an exact example right now, but like, just looking back.
Who was it? Saints Rams, when he just got absolutely plowed before even catching the ball. They didn't call pass interference, which is the opposite of what we're kind of talking about, but changes the whole game.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. It's imperfect. That's part of human behavior. And that's where they're trying to control too much of it. And sometimes you just have to let it play out. That's how I see it.
It's sports. Got to let them play.
Exactly.
Shout out to the Coach Challenge. Shout out to the NBA.
Perfect. Well, that was the Dirty Jersey Podcast, episode 1. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Dirty Jerzey 4, Jersey with a Z. Yeah. We're cool like that. Yeah, that's it. So Jordan, Will, Kayla, and Susan, Dirty Jerzey Podcast, episode 1. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day.